What's up guys, Epic Slayers here, welcome back to a brand new Division video. Today I've got for you a very strong PVE build for the new horde type resistance mode coming in 1.8, challenging missions and also the new challenging directives in Underground 1.8. So if you do enjoy this one, drop a like as it's much appreciated. Sit back, relax and let's do this. Alright, so this is the build that I'm running in 1.8 or will be running in 1.8 and the build that I currently run in the game as it is at the moment for PVE. I think it's a really good build, but of course I look forward to all of your comments and some constructive criticism over this build, what I could possibly change, and I will go over some things of this build that I would personally change myself, but this build itself does really strong, and I'll just quickly go over some of the details with you here. So crit chance unfortunately is only at 14%, but I do have adept on my M4, so I am going to get much better crits, and that's really good because you do want good DPS in sort of challenging missions, especially underground where a lot of it is sort of close quarters combat. You are going to want that sort of burst damage, which you'll get from the M4 on this build. So if I go over some of the numbers, as you can see, 15% health on kill, damage elites is at 34%, and then enemy armor damage is at 55%. So it's pretty good, but there are some changes that I could make here, and I will go over those with you guys. So starting off, the M4 that I normally run, or will be running at this present time, is Deadly, Adept, and Unforgiving. Now I would change all three of these talents if I was using this, if I had another M4 that I could change those talents on. I'd run Ferocious, Destructive. That would put my, well, Ferocious would put my my damage to elites up to 45%, and then if I had Destructive as well, that would put my enemy armor damage up to 70%, so that would be really strong. And I'd also run Competent as well, just because I really like that. Or I'd possibly run Adept actually in 1.8, because you can still stack it twice in 1.8, so you're going to get that extra crit chance, but you do want to be running an M4. An M4 in 1.8 is still going to be unbelievably strong, so I would definitely run it. There are some LMGs that compete, like an MG5, but I personally would run the M4 in 1.8. Secondary weapon is a sniper, of course, my M700, just for those long range sort of battles, and the M700 is a trusty sniper, really good. You might want to opt for something like an M44 or whatever you prefer really, but at the end of the day, M700 is really good. You'll find that a lot of the times you are going to be you're going to be at a sort of height advantage over NPCs. So running something like Elevated, which you get on the M700 Carbon, is really important. It gives you that extra 10%. I really like Balanced on this, and Prepared is obviously really important, giving you that extra 15% of damage when you are 30 meters away from the target, which you're going to be most of the time running an M700. Briefly, before anyone shouts at the screen for not showing the mods of this weapon, I'm just going to go for crit damage, crit chance wherever I can get it. A bit of stability there on the grip, and then lastly with the magazine, I've not gone for rate of fire on this. I've gone for crit chance, crit damage. I just don't need the rate of fire. That extra little bit isn't important against NPCs, but having that little bit of extra crit damage is important, so that's why I've chose to go for that. Now the build, as you can see itself here, I've gone for 2-piece D3 FNC, 1-piece Nomad, and then 2-piece Strikers, of course with Ninja Bikes, where I'm getting 3-piece Defense, 3-piece Strikers, 2-piece Nomads. So we'll quickly go over those, and again I will tell you what I will change, what I would change with this build. So if you look at my D3 FNC vest here, I've gone for health, enemy armor damage, ammo capacity, and that's I would definitely have that. It's rolled into stamina. I'd much rather have a higher stamina amount, of course, but in respect of the actual piece itself, I'm happy with that piece of gear right there. Moving on to the mask, Striker's mask, enemy armor damage, damage to elites, rolled into electronics. Of course, you just want those stats to be as high as possible. In 1.8, you'll have the optimization station, but you do want enemy armor damage and then damage to elites. That'll give you the most sort of damage output anyway. Moving on to the knee pads, damage to elites is a minor attribute, 15%. Burn and shock resistance. Burn resistance is really good for PvE content, so that's important. And then we've got shock resistance, which does help. And then enemy armor damage, of course. I'm just trying to get as much enemy armor damage as possible, because against elites, that becomes really strong because they've got a lot of armor to get through. Moving on to my Ninja Bike backpack, I've gone for skill power and ammo capacity. The reason I've gone for skill power here is just to give me that little bit of extra heal when it's needed. And I'll show you the what sort of talents or skills that I'm running on this afterwards. But yeah, that extra bit of skill does help a lot. And really, I couldn't think of anything better to run here. I could have run health, but to be fair, I just don't need it, to be honest. Having used this build a lot, I just don't need it with this. Moving on to the gloves, the Nomad gloves here. We've got enemy armor damage, assault rifle damage, and crit hit chance. The only thing I might change here is crit hit chance to crit hit damage if I'm running an Adept on my M4. If I'm not running an Adept on the M4, which I probably wouldn't in 1.8 if I could change my mind, then I'd probably run crit. No, I'd probably keep crit chance on there. It's nice to have that little bit of crit chance, to be completely honest on this. And then lastly, the holster, I've gone for skill haste. You could go for protection from elites, but it's only like 2%, not worth it. Health only goes up to about 8,000, not worth it. Skill haste is definitely worth it here. So as you can see with the build, you know, it's relatively strong with it. With a 3-piece D3, we're getting 15% protection from elites, which does help out a lot, and then that extra 10% damage to elites. Of course, with Striker's Mask, we're getting stability, really important on the M4, making sure you're hitting all your shots, and then enemy armor damage. And then with Nomad, we are getting that 50% health on kill. Again, this build has very good DPS, but it also has very good survivability due to that fact. So if I move on to the actual abilities here, I'm running Overdose, but to be fair, I normally swap between Overdose and Booster Shot. And if you're running solo, I'd probably go with Overdose, but if you're running a team, maybe run somewhat like Defibrillator just to help out other people. Yeah, I don't know, it's up to you really, but I would always run a heal. And then I'm always going to be running Immunizer just because of the amount of grenades that get spammed from NPCs. At the end of the day, I could run Pulse, but it's not really that important. I'm getting an extra, what, 6% sort of crit damage and chance when I could be running Immunizer, which gives me resistance against, you know, all those flipping grenades that you get from NPCs, which seem to be spammed quite a lot. So I think, again, that's really important. If I just move on to my talents briefly here, gone for Triage, because I would normally be using this build in a team, as you would expect to be when you're running these sort of missions or directives or whatever you're running, underground resistance, whatever it is. Strike Back I always run just because it really does make a big difference when you're at low health. Critical Save, very important of course, and then on the move as well. That will be most of the time. So yeah, that's the build, guys. I mean, it's a really strong build. One of the major changes I would make to this is I wouldn't run you know, prototype firearms mods here. Well, I would run firearms mods, but I would make sure they were purple, and you'd be getting that damage to elites, and you'd be getting 3% on each one. So that actually put your the damage to elites up on this build. If you you are running something like Ferocious on the M4, for example, that would put your damage elites from 45 up to 60% because you'd be getting 50% from the mods. So there you go. Hopefully you did enjoy this one. Again, I am by no means a guru at PvE content or at making PvE builds, and I don't do them very often, as you'll probably see on my channel, but I would prefer you guys to leave me some sort of criticism below, what I could change, you know, just to really help me out, because I do need that help with my PvE builds. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, drop a like again, be much appreciated. Until next time, peace.